And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to IT Career in Australia live stream. And tonight's topic is top tips for interview success in IT industry. So I've been away for like a few weeks, if you haven't noticed. So I'm back. I hope you missed me. Not sure if you even noticed that I was gone, but let's hope so. So thank you so much for finding some time this evening to join our live discussion. As usual, I ask you introduce yourselves in the comments, let us know what you do, and join our conversation with your comments and questions. So if you're new to this channel, I'm Jana Martins, and I'm currently working in IT consultancy myself. So I'm passionate about learning more about tech industry and share my new findings with you on this YouTube channel. So tonight we're talking about top tips for interview success in IT industry. And Wendy is going to share her story and her experience in the industry as a hiring manager, and also give you her top tips and techniques for nailing those jobs interviews. So it's an incredibly relevant topic, especially for those who, looking for career change at the moment. So please make sure tag and share this video with your colleagues and friends who need to hear this. So, and as usual, before I'll pass it on to Wendy to introduce herself, just want to quickly remind you that we're going live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So to watch the replays, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, IT Career in Australia. So I'm going live there every Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Melbourne time, with various experts from my network. And we're talking about all things around IT career, job search, and specifics of IT industry in Australia. I'll also encourage you to join my meetup group to make sure you get notifications about upcoming discussions. And as usual, again, please don't be shy, ask some questions. We'll try to answer all your questions from all the platforms. Just make sure to stay on the topic. Yep. So let's not start talking about some cybersecurity suddenly. That's not today's topic. And also, I always encourage you to use these live streams as your opportunity not only to learn new information, but to network with people in the industry. So, few people joining us. Rosabella's here. Hi, Anna. Welcome back. I hope that you enjoy your rest. Thank you. It was warm compared to Melbourne. Nika's here as well. Tagging the person that probably need to hear this. Thank you, Nika. And thank you so much, guys, for saying hi. I know the more people watching, so make sure to say hi to us, because it's always nice to know that, someone's actually here and we're not just talking with the crickets. So, Wendy, please, over to you.
Hello there. Hi, everyone. Hope you're all well and not experiencing too much cold. It's cold in Melbourne. So my name is Wendy Alexander, and I am the founder and principal coach at happycareerhub.com, and also the principal resume writer. I'm a freelance writer as well, so I write resumes, LinkedIn profiles, cover letters, business copy, anything to do with words I love. And I was in the IT industry for a long time myself, for about 22, 23 years before I went full-time as a career coach.
Perfect. Thank you, Wendy. We'll definitely have more people saying hi. Prize saying hi. Nika saying hi as well. Dan is here as well. He's my boss here. How good's that? James here. Hi, Anna. Question: how do address test of knowledge situation in the Zoom type interviews? So we'll definitely get to the to that question, James, in the second. But I guess let's just start with a little bit intro, before we'll get to the actual tips. So Wendy, just maybe in the beginning, we'll definitely talk about virtual interviews today for sure. So Wendy, just before we dig into the content, maybe just tell us a little bit more about yourself, and how did you actually decide to be a career coach?
Okay, so I actually had a situation happen many years ago where my relationship ended. And so I was a single mom trying to earn more income, to be quite honest. I wanted to earn more income and started applying for roles, but found that my resume wasn't working. And so, being the writer that I am, I went on this mission to refine and learn how to write resumes. And I started talking to hiring people, especially in the HR departments where I was working. I started talking to recruiters. My mission was to pick their brains, get their knowledge. So I took them out for lots of coffees. There was lots of coffees going on in those days and lunches. And I started to develop a system and a way to write resumes. And I noticed probably within 3 or 4 months on that journey, I was starting to get hits, and I was getting hits all the time, getting interviews. And so, you know, I became the go-to person amongst my colleagues and my friends and my family because people saw that I was landing the kind of roles that was catapulting my income, I suppose. I jumped my income on the first role that I landed by about 45, 50 grand. And then after that, just kept getting these really great roles. But it was all about knowing how to position my resume. And then also the other thing I did was obviously pick the brains of the same people for interview tips. How do I perform in an interview? How do I answer questions? All of those things. And so it was a process that had me have success as a single parent, skyrocket my income, helping other people. And then over the years, I refined the system. Now, I was doing career coaching part time while I was working full time in corporate IT. And eventually I landed roles in, like I was hiring manager roles in some of the top 50 corporations in Australia. And obviously, being the person hiring, I knew what I liked to see, what was going to make me interested in a resume. And I was also obviously watching how people performed and sold themselves in interviews. And so I just kept refining my system based on the fact that I was hiring for major projects, some of the biggest projects in Australia, and also going for roles myself every few years, changing contracts, going for bigger and better roles. And then the system became a repeatable system, and that's what I still use today. Now I adapt and I adjust according to what the market trends are doing. But the system has worked, and it's worked for probably over 15 to 17 years now.
So
So that's how it
definitely,
all
and
started for me.
definitely, a lot of years and experience and knowledge, and I'm sure you can share great tips today. But let's start from the beginning, Wendy. Like, why it's so, I guess, why this topic is so important at the moment. It seems like it's a candidate market. There is so many jobs out there. Why do we need still nail this interview?
Well, we're going through, people probably have heard, right? Great resignation is on, the great reset, the great career switch. All of that is happening. And that happened as a result of the pandemic, right? People had their, I suppose, moment with God on the road to Damascus, if you want to call it. It's an expression where people have an epiphany about their lives, and most of us did. We started to figure out that there were certain things we wanted to do, maybe careers we didn't like doing anymore. So there's been a big change. People have left. Companies have also changed, right? They're trying to accommodate various working environments. And one of the big things to come out of the pandemic was, this need for emotional intelligence. That's become super important. And so, with the great resignation, the requirement for emotional intelligence to manage all of people's emotions and challenges that have happened through the pandemic, the whole hiring market has changed somewhat. And so, if you want to compete in the market, just because there's a lot of roles at the moment, because there is a talent shortage, that is true. But the market is also filled with candidates. because there's also been a lot of candidates being released from some of the major corporations. So that tends to happen and goes in cycles. In 2018, like we saw companies, some telcos, spill a lot of heads into the market. And so I think that kind of happens in cycles, and it's also happened post-pandemic cycle. And so that's why there's a need now for people to, well, there's always been a need for people to be really good candidates. That's never going to change, right? And in IT is the industry that pays the money. So when there's an industry that pays the money, you have to shape up really well as a candidate. People aren't just going to
Definitely.
hand over six-figure incomes if you're not a strong candidate. You've got to be able to sell yourself. You've got to be able to demonstrate that you've achieved in the IT industry, and you've got to be up to date with technology.
Definitely. And it's definitely interesting to see what's happening in the market at the moment. And yeah, even if we feel like, it's built with some release from the big corporation, there's still so many roles. But interestingly, at the moment, I feel like it's just shortage of people everywhere, not only in IT. It
Well,
feels
that's
like
true.
you take any industry and it's like, where is all the people? It's like people disappeared after pandemic.
Well, we know that the two industries really suffering is the healthcare and the hospitality. They're really
Yeah,
suffering at the moment, and healthcare is so broad, and it also includes IT. So healthcare is trying to upgrade systems. So they
yeah,
need information technology people as well. But there's been so many restrictions around various things, and so all of these things are impacting one upon the other. And so
yeah,
we're in a
yeah,
very strange market. We're in a market where there's loads of candidates, but we're also in a market where people are leaving. So you've got this bunch of candidates looking for roles, but then you've got companies releasing people, and you've also got people releasing themselves from roles. They want to do something different. They want to go start a business. They want to go live off the grid. They want to travel for a couple of years because they haven't been able to travel for 3 years. All of that kind of stuff is going on, and it collides. It collides, and it causes this volatility in the market. And when there's volatility, that's when the candidates really have to step up, really have to shine. You've got to stand out.
yeah. Definitely. And look, there's quite a few people saying hi. I'm just gonna, acknowledge the people joining us. Vinkat is here, Peter is here. Um, High turnaround at the moment, definitely James. And look, Wendy, like obviously, we're talking about interview success today, but I guess we have to mention, before we getting this interview, we need to apply for the job and we need the resume. And you mentioned in the beginning that you been asking a lot of these tips from the people around you regarding resumes and adjust your resume millions of times. So let's just, I guess, highlight your main tips about the resumes writing for people before we jump into the interview tips.
Okay, so with a resume, the interview process actually starts with your resume. So if you don't have a great resume, you're not getting the interview. And in today's market, the way you stand out is with the focus on your achievements. You need to highlight, you need to demonstrate. So whatever role you're applying for, you need to know and study that job description thoroughly. And then you need to address the selection criteria of the job description in your resume and also in your cover letter, right? And so achievements is now what hiring people want to see. They don't want a job description regurgitated back to them. And so a lot of people, a lot of the time when I'm working with people, I see they send me their current resume, and it's filled with tasks and responsibilities. That's not going to entice anyone to call you, especially in a competitive market, because people already know what a DevOps person does. They already know what a project manager does. They know what a business analyst does. So they don't want you to list tasks and responsibilities. You can give like a one sentence synopsis of the role, or of your evidence, and then you need to get straight into the achievements. You actually have to demonstrate where you excelled in certain things. And I say to people, because some people come to me and they go, well, how do I write achievement? How do I do that? And I say, you need to think about what you made better. What did you make better? Did you help increase productivity? Did your task or the work that you did or the work that you deliver, did it generate revenue? Did you uplift team members by the way you helped them? So what did you make better? Whether it was making a team better, whether it was making a process better, whether it was generating revenue for the company, those are the things that you need to focus on. And that's what an achievement is all about. And one of the best ways you can demonstrate it is in a sharp sentence. And I call it, people talk about the STAR model, which is fine. I prefer to use the SAO model because I learned about that from government jobs and government websites years ago. And it's situation, action, outcome. It's a 3-step process rather than the 4-step STAR process. And if you address your achievements like that with a very brief situation, the actions that were taken and the outcome, in other words, the results, that's a strong, solid achievement. If you can back your achievements up with some metrics, so if you increase productivity by 30%, say that, add the 30%, because the 30% makes that achievement tangible. And so a lot of people might go, I increase productivity, but they forget that if you've got a metric, add the metric. If your project, generated 5 million in revenue over a 10-year period or over a 5-year period, say that. Add the metrics, because the metrics make the achievements stronger. And so that's where I think a lot of people miss the boat a little bit. They focus their resumes on tasks and responsibilities when, in fact, hiring people want to see how you've achieved. What did you make better? Show me what you made better, because immediately their mind will go to, aha, this is how this person can contribute to my company, to my project, to my business unit, whatever it may be.
Yeah, definitely, Wendy. And I think we see it all the time that, people just go to job description and, just grab those bullet points from job description and put in their resume. And then, anyone from this company will have the same resume with the same bullet points.
Correct. I've seen it over, and it's one of the first things I change when I help people rewrite the resume is literally change the focus to the achievements. Forget about the tasks and responsibilities. Job description already knows that. We don't want to see a regurgitation of that. In fact, it is the thing that will irritate most hiring managers. Certainly when I was hiring in projects, if I saw a regurgitation of a job description, that resume got put at the bottom of the pile. And I would literally only go back to that type of resume if I couldn't find what I was looking for in the pile that was left. So for me, it's about, if you can show me in a short, sharp, succinct resume how you achieved, that's what I'm interested in. Keep the resume, if you can, to about 2 pages is another tip that I have. Don't be verbose. Don't waffle on, and focus on your last 10 years experience. You don't need to go back more than 10 years. You can put summary roles if they were older than 10 years, but focus on the last 10 years because technology changes. Nobody's interested in technology and what you were doing 10 years ago because it's changed. It's moved on. It's moving on, literally annually. We see how it's going, how fast moving technology is at the moment.
James actually has a question exactly regarding, that achievement part. How do you balance adding so much achievement text in the resume when you have recruiters who have told me that they don't read more than 1 or 2 pages?
Well, I think I just sort of started answering that, was that you focus on the last 10 years. You don't need to have, each role doesn't have to be a page long. So if you at a company, for 3 or 4 or 5 years, you highlight your top achievements, top four, top five, that's it, and keep your sentences short and sharp. Um, it doesn't have to be paragraphs. Bullet points work much better because they're easier to scan. Here's another tip. Make sure your resume is scannable for the human eye. So a lot of people try to go with these jazzy, snazzy new templates, but they don't actually work really well for the human eye. They might look pretty and fabulous in a picture format, but when someone's scanning it, if I'm scanning it, I'm the reader, I'm the hiring manager, I want to be able to pick out the pertinent points immediately. That means you need to make it easy for me to scan. And the human eye scans centrally. So keep your template simple and keep your achievements to short, sharp bullet points. And as
I
I
think
said,
the yeah.
nothing older, like anything prior to the latest 10 years, the last 10 years, put it as a summary. So, the month and year or whatever that you started and ended, the name of the company and the title of the role. That's it. That's all you need to provide for older roles.
And I think, Wendy, it's a really good point about this, scannability of the resume, because, yeah, sometimes you see some resumes and you're just struggling to find the relevant information just because of the fonts and stuff. And I do believe when we write our own resume, sometimes because obviously we know everything about ourselves, we know all the information, we know where we worked before, we not always think about how easy to find this information. So I think like the one of the tips here would be also to just give it to your friends to read and just ask them, like, can you see where I worked? Like, can you easily see the main points, so that someone will look at it like with a fresh eye.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you always need to have the reader in mind. So a lot of times when we write our own resumes, as you said, Jana, we focused on how much we know ourselves, and we tend to want to overkill with information. I need to sell myself. I need to sell myself. That means I need to tell them everything. No, think about the reader. So a recruiter and a hiring manager is busy. So always think about their time and how quickly you need to convey your information to them.
So James has another clarifying question here. So then what is the difference between bullet point for achievements versus task, or is it a mix of both?
So as I said, I would just put a synopsis of the role. So if you say a manager, you can put, so say you someone who led, you're a project manager, you can say, managing multiple projects, the type of projects you're managing with a budget of so much and team of 10 people. That's it. That is your synopsis. And then you go achievements and your bullet points immediately under that. Maybe 3 to 4 to 5 achievements, depending on how long you've worked in the role. If you've only worked in a role for 3 to 6 months, 1 to 2 achievements is enough. If you've been there for 18 months to 2 years, 4 to 5, good enough. Choose the top ones, the ones that align mostly to the job description, to what they're looking for in the job description, that demonstrates you've got wins in that particular area.
Yeah, and I guess it also depends what job you're applying at the moment. Maybe you wanna, adjust, some sort of points. It depends what job you're applying to. James is just, clarifying a bit more. How do you address achievement and bullet points for roles that are not project-based?
Well, I think every role that you do, you've had some kind of achievement, right? Whether you've been a business analyst or a project manager or a technical person, you've contributed something somewhere. And sometimes you can be the person who, for example, in a technical role, you came up with a faster way to do a process, or a better way to communicate an architectural diagram or something. That if that led to something and that made the delivery of whatever you're doing shorter, then that's an achievement. Like I said, ask yourself the question, what did I make better in my job?
Yeah,
And
I think
you're always going to find an achievement. People go, oh, but I can't find an achievement. No, if you ask the question, what did I make better? and you start making a list, then you choose the highlights that then marry up with those kinds of jobs, or what the job description is asking for.
I think it's, the same problem when, for example, you start mentoring someone, you suddenly realize how much you know. So, and how many people would say that, they don't feel they're doing anything special at their job until they start training someone and they realize, oh, I actually doing quite a lot, and, I have quite a lot of knowledge in the area. So that could be, some exercise as well, like, trying to explain to some of your colleagues what you're doing, or to your friends. And maybe this way you will actually realize, I actually do have some achievement at my job.
Yes,
It's not
correct.
just common sense that like everyone can do it.
Absolutely. And working with a coach, or working with a colleague, get someone else to go through the process with you, because someone else is always going to be able to see clearer. We don't always see ourselves very clearly. So you often need another set of eyes. And I think when it comes to your career, you need to make it a priority to make sure you're working with someone. Doesn't necessarily have to be a coach if you don't want to pay a coach or something, but find someone who can help you, pull those achievements out of yourself.
Wendy, it seems like a resume topic is, burning
Yes,
one.
I think we need to move on to the one we're here to talk about.
Yeah, but there's one more question about the resume. Let's just, answer this question and we'll move on to the interview tips. Dan is asking, what are the key difference for resume for example, senior developer and someone who is going for CIO role?
Look, I think that it comes down to the technology that's being used, right? You want to demonstrate that you're current. So if you're using certain technologies in DevOps, you want to mention that if it's in the job description. But fundamentally, technical roles, or any kind of role in today's market, comes down more to your ability to work with teams, to communicate. The technical side of it is only somewhat important. The emotional intelligence, the EQ, is more important, and you need to demonstrate that more than you demonstrate even the technical stuff. You can put at the bottom. When we get to the education section, I often say to people, list your technologies that you use, so people know you across certain things. But here's the thing: when you get to the interview stage, you may get asked a specific technical question, and you need to be able to demonstrate that even if you don't have that particular experience, say you've worked focusedly in DevOps and you're now moving into CI and CD, that you can say, I haven't had that experience in whatever tools being used in that organization, whether it's a CI or CD tool, but these are the tools I've used in my DevOps roles, and this is how it works similarly, right? So you need to be able to answer the questions based on your experience, regardless of the tools. And a lot of people get hung up on this thing about the various tools. Oh, I don't have that tool. I don't have that technical knowledge. But the thing is, the thinking process, the working with people process, the nutting out, the planning process, all of those things don't really change. They're consistent. It's about planning. It's about thought. It's about working with who you need to work with to get the information and the knowledge, and to actually deliver whatever you're there to deliver.
Yeah, definitely. And as I said, let's move on. Like, I think James have quite a few questions about the resume. James, I think I'm just looking, we half an hour into the stream. We'll definitely take this conversation offline, because I think there's definitely a lot of things to cover more about the resume, and I'm sure Wendy will be happy to have a chat and share more tips offline. But I guess we're trying to get to the interview tips today as well. So I guess let's jump straight into it. What about so let's say we finally list all the achievements. We made a resume that it can stand out. So next step, we're getting to this interview. So what, those things we need to take in consideration when we're going to this interview?
Okay, so at the moment, obviously, in the current market, virtual interviews are a thing. And I think that they're here to stay, right? So you need to make sure that your virtual setup is handled. So strong internet connection and a good headset. And headset because you want to drown out any external noise or anything that could distract you. The other tip I have is make sure your background is not offensive. So if you're using a virtual background, use something that's neutral, nature picture, an office picture, a library, anything like that. Um, Definitely make sure that the washing and the ironing is not in the background, right? I mean, come on. You're going for an interview, you need to be professional, even if you are a virtual interview, and even if um, you don't have to dress formally in a suit, tie, whatever, blouse, you can be more casual. You need to make sure that you appear professional and that you don't have a disorganized and untidy background. That's not going to impress anybody. So setting up your virtual space is really important. Make sure your camera angle is good, that you're looking directly into the camera, because that gives that illusion that you're talking directly to your interviewer, right? Or the interview panel, whoever's going to be there. So look into the camera when you're speaking, because that's about practicing holding eye contact. We all know when we're in an in-person interview, the most important thing you can do is to hold eye contact with the people you're talking to. Little bit more difficult when we're in virtual settings, but as I said, they're here to stay, so you've got to nail them. So practice, practice, practice. And then the big tip is to practice and to make sure that you do your virtual setup checks at least 30 minutes before your interview. I can't tell you the number of times I've spoken with people and then they're checking systems, sound is not working, this is not working. It's just not going to impress anyone. Now, Jana, you in that hiring space yourself, what have you found with virtual interviews and setups? Have you found people sometimes are not prepared?
It's yeah. So it's interesting. It seems like such a basic thing, just to make sure to rock up to the interview on time and make sure your microphone is working and your background is tidy. But yeah, surprisingly, people do fail to do so, and and they trying to connect just before the interview, and something fail, and then there is no sound or something. Yeah, it's quite, actually, it surprised me how often it happens. And like a simple things, sometimes maybe it's a Google invite, but there is, like, I don't know, Microsoft Team link in it. So just check it before check it before you interview, because you go to the invite and then you start looking like, how do I join? So yeah, definitely do yourself a favor and check those things, like half an hour before you interview, so it doesn't look like you're trying to connect 5 minutes in, and then you already lost these 5 minutes of the interview. That sometimes interview can be only half an hour these days, so the 5 minutes, it's already 10% of your interview.
Correct. You don't want to be wasting people's time, because as I said, just like I said with the resume, you have to have the reader in mind. You have to have the interviewer's time in mind all the time. It's all about this respect thing that goes on, and the nuances of whether you turn up on time, whether you're ready. It all sends a message, and you want to be sending positive messages. You want to be compelling to that interviewer. You want them to think this person is polished, they organized, um, they displaying leadership qualities, organizational, all of these things, right? And you need to get that right from the moment that you hit that button to do that virtual interview.
James saying, would you need to expect that the interviewer would have the same respect for the same thing? I've seen so many chins and nostrils. I think it goes both ways. Like, and guys, like, remember, it's a candidate market, so I think it's the same thing. If the hiring manager give you, the bad impression and nostrils, that's not a good start either.
Correct. Absolutely. That's why I said camera angle is really important. Make sure it's front on, so that you're not looking up someone's nostrils or they not looking up yours. Test it, practice with people. Get a friend, a partner, a child even, to get on the Zoom or whatever it is that you're using beforehand, just to make sure your camera angle is good. All of these checks need to be done beforehand. And yes,
No.
James, it is a respect thing. And, sometimes interviewers can come in and be flurried and rushed and all of that. And you need to remember, we all need to remember that we interviewing a company as much as they interviewing us. So you also need to be watching for signals and signs of whether there's respect from the leadership. And that happens in little things. It happens in little things. And so remember, it's interview process is not a one-way street. It's actually a two-way street, because you need to decide if that's the right company for you. If that how the leadership, what they're displaying, the culture, everything that you learn in that interview, if that is what you're really after. You don't want to be going from job to job. It's not going to look great on your resume after a while.
And actually, James, I would really recommend you to go back and watch our interview with Pavi. We talk about the essential elements for a great candidate experience. And Pavi talk, a lot about that, hiring managers' behavior and, how it goes both ways. So definitely recommend you, if you have a chance, go back and listen to that interview, exactly talking about, this respect thing and what they're expecting from the hiring manager to create this great candidate experience, to make sure that, great candidates actually going to join that company.
Yes, absolutely.
To keep going about nostrils. Wendy, actually, I can't help myself to go back to some questions. I know we kind of, pose in the resume topic, but there's, a bit of a conversation there between Peter and James about the cover letter. We hasn't really touched it. But, the Peter is actually asking, why is the cover letter still important? And James actually think that maybe it's not as important, because if we're putting all the achievements in our resume, it seems like cover letter is already redundant. So what is your point? Like why the cover letter is still there?
So the cover letter is your first introduction to the person. And usually people want a one-pager. So it's your opportunity to do your elevator pitch, so to speak. And it's where you get to sell yourself in a succinct way, because a resume can be 1 page, 2 pages, maybe 3 pages. A lot of people don't like going, beyond 2 pages. Recruiters hiring people don't want to see anything that's longer than 2 pages. But if you learn how to succinctly articulate your value in a cover letter, that can sometimes be what's used in the decision-making process. And here's what I mean. Say I'm a hiring manager, and I did this a lot when I was hiring in IT, and I got a bunch of resumes, maybe 20, 30, whatever. I'd go through them, probably choose the top 10, top 12. If they were all really good, sometimes I made my decision based on the cover letter. So if someone couldn't sell themselves to me in a sharp and succinct cover letter, then they did, even if they had a great resume, because I'm now choosing out of 10 resumes. I've got 10 great resumes. So how else do I make this choice? I often used to go back to the cover letter, and a lot of hiring managers still do. Now, there's some people, you'll get mixed opinions. Submit a cover letter, don't submit a cover letter. My advice is always submit a cover letter, because that could be the document that decides whether you get the interview. If you can't sell your skills, your wins, your achievements in a cover letter, addressing some of my key selection criteria, if you can't do it in a 1-pager or 400 words, and I've got 10 resumes and yours is also good and 9 others are great, I'm going to choose the person that sold me the best in the cover letter. So it is important. And I will debate anyone on that. And as a hiring manager, as a coach, I still look at cover letters. I will always look at a cover letter. It's your
And I think
introduction.
like,
Make it count.
yeah, also cover letters quite rare these days. So if you have a cover letter, that's already make you stand out because you do have a
Correct.
cover letter.
Yeah.
But also, what I've seen people writing more like informal cover letters. So the resume been something reasonably formal. You're putting your achievements, you're putting bullet points. Where like I've seen the cover letters that written more in like informal way and just sort of introducing themselves, showing a bit of personality. And that could be quite powerful as well. So, and
Yes.
obviously, the also addressing cover letter to this particular role and this particular company and just giving a few pages why they're interested in this particular role.
Correct. Yep. And also an opportunity to show your leadership skills and initiative, because you are more than simply your professional resume. There's your personal life. There could be something in your personal life that's worthwhile mentioning, and you can mention that in a cover letter. You could be volunteering at certain organizations. You could be coaching sports teams and doing leadership programs that are going to be valuable, that you wouldn't necessarily include in a resume, but you can include it in a cover letter. So I agree with you, Jana. There's an opportunity to show a little bit of personality. Obviously, keep it tight, right? If your cover letter is longer than a page, people aren't going to read it.
Yeah. And I think also when you maybe coming from career break or you changing career, I think cover letter could be quite powerful because like maybe your resume is a bit irrelevant for this role, but you explaining in your cover letter, why you actually applying for this role. Because in reality, yes, so majority of the recruiters will look to relevant skills straight away, and your resume just not going to make it because you don't have a relevant experience. But the cover letter is often, yeah, if you moving the career or had a gap or something and you can explain it cover letter, it could be definitely the way to go.
Yeah, it's your elevator pitch, basically. It's your elevator pitch into and your first introduction into the company or the recruiter or the hiring person. So it's
uh,
important.
yeah, Rosabella is saying the cover letter is your opportunity to showcase your communication skills as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Definitely.
100%.
Wendy, I feel like we the resume just gets so much attention, probably more than interview because it's it feels like it's harder to the hardest bit is actually get the interview.
Correct. But the thing is, look, you can get assistance with your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile. There are writers, people who can help you. You do need to nail the interview process, because that is you selling yourself. As a coach, I don't get to go with my clients into an interview. I practice with them, I coach them through interviews, but I don't get to go with them. And that's why I say to them, it's the most important process to nail is the confidence in an interview, because it's you selling yourself. So you may have passed the application tracking systems with a great resume, all of those things, and someone's helped you put it together, and that's a great thing. But you need to become really polished at your interviews, because that is you selling you, and you do it alone with no career coach present with you, nothing. It's you. And so it's very important to develop that skill and to practice. For me, it's practice. I say to my clients all the time, practice, practice, practice. And the ones who do come and work with me, we do these sessions where we practice over and over. I record it with them and then give them the recording. So it's like, when you're going again, if you're going for the next one, go and watch those recordings. Look at what we discussed. Look at what I gave you tips on. Answer too short, too tight, too long, whatever, or you're waffling, your body language, all of those things. Are you holding that contact with the camera, or are you holding that eye contact in person? Are you actually answering the question? Have you listened to the question properly? These are all very, very important things to get right in an interview. Because if you don't nail the interview, you don't get the job.
Yeah, definitely.
It's as simple as that.
I'm cautious about the time. We already know 45 minutes mark, but I
Yes.
would love to just quickly, scan through, some of the, main tips. And we already kind of mentioned a few things that listed here with you, Wendy. But just, I guess, in the next 5 minutes, maybe just summarize your top tips for us for the interview.
Yes, so obviously know your resume, because they're going to have it in front of them. And if you don't know your dates, there's misalignment when you start answering questions. That's going to be a red flag to the interviewer that you don't know your resume very well. Practice your answers. There's the top 20 questions that you get, things like, what is your leadership style? Or describe a difficult work situation. And I always say to people, as I said, in the resume, use the SAO framework. Do the same in your interview. Describe the situation, the actions you took, and the outcome. Be sharp and succinct with your answers. So my tip is, if you're talking for 2 minutes on an answer, you're talking too long. Try to keep your answers 2 minutes or less. Obviously, don't no one-word answers. That's not going to work either. So there has to be a balance. So describe the situation, the action, the outcome. When you ask questions about leadership style, use words like collaborative. People like that word, because collaborative means that you can work with everybody. You can work with senior leadership, you can work with teams, you can work with vendors, all of these things. So that's a great word to use around leadership, collaborative, open leadership style, all of those kinds of things. um, you know, Other kinds of questions in that top 20s questions is going to be, uh, tell me about a situation that was difficult and how you overcame that, you know? So you want to describe the situation, you want to describe the actions, and maybe there wasn't a necessarily a positive result, because you don't always have to give a positive result. But what you do have to give are the lessons that you learned. What did you learn from the experience, right? So that's really, really important. Um, what else did
I
I
like,
have
I
there?
like, I like that you mentioned, Wendy, about knowing your resume. Again, like, seems such a obvious thing, but it often happens that you ask some questions like, oh, tell me about, what did you do with this technology back in this company? And the person doesn't even remember that they listed that technology for this company. Like, it happens, those things happens. And like, I understand, like, people do get nervous as well, or you wrote your resume 5 years ago and you just only updated last job, and already forgot what you've been doing before. But I think, like, it's a really simple but powerful tip. Just know actually what you put on your resume.
Correct. Yep. And then with regards to technology, obviously, when we're in the IT industry, so a lot of questions, because companies are trying to determine that EQ, they are going to stick largely with behavioral style questions. But you will get some technology questions. And so, for example, if you get a question around a DevOps environment, right? And the interviewer says to you, we're going another way on our security integrations. And I can see on your resume that you don't have that tool set, right? Then you answer the question. You could say something like, I'm familiar with working in that CI CD environment, communications, integration, continuous delivery environment. And I have experience with many tools, and you name one or two tools, you know, and say, so I'm confident that I'll quickly be able to pick up the tools that's used in this company. It's a really simple way to answer a question, because, as I said, it's all about processing, thinking, working with others, and whatever you don't know can quickly be learned. You can go and get training and certification yourself, or you can do it through the company. That's a question you could ask them, what kind of training is on offer. But remember, technology is moving, but how we use it is fundamentally the same. It requires thinking and planning and collaboration and learning.
Yeah, definitely, Wendy. Like, a good point in terms of just at least knowing briefly about the new technology. And definitely there's so many out there, but if you at least have a rough understanding of this technology, and you can say like, yeah, because I worked with this, I can definitely pick up this, rather than saying like, oh no, I've never heard about it.
Yeah, correct. Correct. You always relay it back to your experience. Use your experience as a way to show them that you're open to learning and that you know you can run through a process and through a learning.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and obviously, if you never heard about it, there is nothing wrong saying
With
that
being
you never heard
correct.
about it. But it's always good to show that that you across the technology, especially if you're in a particular if you're in a particular space. We've been talking about DevOps a lot. If you, I don't know,
Yeah.
if you never work with Chef, but you work with Ansible and Puppet, like, why not to say it instead of saying like, oh, I don't know Chef, I have no idea what is it. So
Yes.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it
Name
is
the
it
ones
is
that
how we put it. Yeah,
correct. Name the ones you've used.
yeah, no, definitely.
So, and
And
then
yeah, yep,
the other tip, one of the most important tips I want to bring is bring yourself to the interview. Be willing to share a little bit about your hobbies, your life, your outside interests, because people don't want you to come across, or they're not going to be impressed by someone who comes across as a professional robot. I worked with a client a while back, and some of the feedback he kept getting with interviews was they couldn't relate to him, they couldn't connect to him because he was coming across as the words they used was too slick and overly professional, so they couldn't see how he would fit in with their team. you know they couldn't see. He was quite robotic, and we had to go through a lot of practice before he was comfortable in just bringing a little bit of more of the personality and also his hobbies and his interests. And when you get asked that question, which is often going to come up, tell me about yourself, that's where you can really bring some of that personality to that answer. So you don't have to simply answer about your professional experience. When someone says, tell me about yourself, there's more to you than just your professional self. So this particular client was taking singing lessons, and he started sharing that in the interview, and it was the thing that was the connector. It was the connector. He said that he was nervous. He was always nervous. And so he started taking singing lessons to learn how to project his voice and things like that. Immediately formed connections. And that guy got quite a number of interviews and quite a number of offers because he ended up going from this robotic, slick professional that they'd labeled him as to someone that was someone people could connect with. And that's what you need to do in an interview, is connect with people. Because remember, they're interviewing you not only for your skills, but for how you're going to fit in with the rest of the team and the company and the business unit.
definitely. And I think on another side as well, it helps you to be more rememberable. I don't know if it's the word
Yes, yeah, memorable.
rememberable. Memorable.
Absolutely memorable.
Because like if I don't know, interview 10 people, and I don't know, all of them was okay, and all of them can, I'll remember the person that had a good story, or the person who like stand out with something interesting. Or even then, I don't know, sometimes maybe this position didn't fill, but we have a similar position, and instead of advertising it again, we will think like, oh, who applied before? And immediately the person with the interesting story, interesting personality, it will be person that pop into the mind, and you're like, oh, I remember that guy, I might give him a call. Or that guy told me he really enjoyed, I don't know, this particular domain, this particular company, or passionate about this. So if bringing this personality, yeah, help you to be memorable, not even just to get this particular job, but it's all about building relationship with the hiring managers, with recruiters, and so on.
That's right. Absolutely agree. Because if you're memorable to a hiring person or recruiter, even if you're not the right fit for that job, you stand out in their mind. And the moment something comes across their path that fits you, you're the first person they're going to call. Or they're likely to pass you on. So I've seen recruiters pass people on saying, you know what, they weren't quite right for the role that I was advertising, but They pass the person on to their fellow recruiters and say, I've got this candidate, I've spoken to this candidate, or hiring manager, I've spoken to this candidate, I think this person might be really great for that role that you wanting to fill. So it's all about relationship building. It is about standing out, and one of the best ways to stand out is to come with a personality and a little bit of a story. Stories always sell. Always sell.
Definitely. And Wendy, we can talk about it for hours, but I am cautious about, the time. We're already 55 minutes into our live stream. And I think, you already mentioned about this, the most popular top 20 interview questions. That's a good, starting point to prepare for the interview. And I guess you have the, something that can help people if they email you.
Absolutely. I'm happy to share that guide. And the one final tip is send a handwritten thank you note when you've done your interviews. It is definitely the thing that stands out in the current market because people don't do it. It's such a rare thing, but I've seen it work miracles. Miracles. Handwritten thank you note. Old school, but it'll definitely make you memorable.
And I think anything that can help you to stand out, anything a little bit out of the box, a little bit unusual. That's anything. If you do anything like this, it definitely will make you memorable. But as we just said, maybe won't get you this particular job, but maybe open the doors to some other opportunities because people will remember you.
Absolutely. Remember, career success is a long game, and it's a long game in relationship building.
And guys, I'm sure you all want to get this guide from Wendy. So, to get this guide on answering the top 20 interview questions, just you can see the Wendy's email on the screen now. I'll put it in the comments as well. So you can email Wendy and she will email you back with your top 20 interview questions guide. So make sure to do that. And also, that's one of the giveaways for tonight. But we also have another giveaway for tonight, as usual. The 30 minutes, virtual coffee chat with Wendy, with the guest speaker. I guess we all know who's getting this.
Yeah.
virtual coffee chat today. James, that's you. You're a winner of today's giveaway. Looks like you have so many questions popping up. We couldn't really answer all your questions during our stream. So I'll make sure I'll connect you with Wendy so you can organize the virtual coffee chat and get all these other questions answered.
Yes, James, thank you for being such an active participant and asking all the questions. I'm happy to answer more if you want to reach out and we can have a virtual coffee together.
Perfect. So I think you asked like a record amount of questions today, James, of the history of live streams. I think that's a recorded amount of the of the questions. And guys, obviously before I'll say goodbye, I just want to obviously mention that I'm streaming every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. But next Wednesday, I'm not going to do a live stream because I'm actually going to the DevOps Talks conference in Sydney. So if I have any connections in Sydney, hit me up. I'll be there for 2 days, next Tuesday and Wednesday, listening to all the speakers in DevOps space and obviously connecting with people in the space as well. So hit me up if you would like to catch up for coffee Tuesday, Wednesday next week. And the week after, on Wednesday, we're going to talk with Eden and we're going to talk about the future of work flexibility in the tech industry. Burning topic as well. Some people want to come back to the office, some people don't want to come back to the office, some people think that, that's the future. Some people think that, we're losing the collaboration. So we're going to talk with Eden on the 14th of September on this topic. So make sure to join us to hear some updates. Um, so cool. So James, I'll connect you, Wendy. Wendy, and just to finish this live stream, do you have just your favorite inspirational quote, or I don't know, something that you live your life by that you can share with us to finish this
Um,
live stream?
it goes back to the old Nike quote, man. Just do it. Whatever it is that you want to achieve in life, go for it. Just do it. Nothing happens with dreaming. It takes actions. Same with career success. Same with interview success. Practice, do, be in action about it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Wendy. Great value, so much information that we couldn't feed in 1 hour. And everyone else, thank you so much for your participation. And obviously, just do it.
Thank you. Thank you for
And
having
I'll
me,
see
Anna.
you. And I'll see you next week.